All right, everyone, welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I've got an outstanding guest today. I really appreciate his time. He's got a lot of stuff going on before the hunts, getting things wrapped up so he can go disappear and log out of anything social so that he can go and slam some animals. So, with that being said, we've got John Dudley here with Nock On and just a wealth of knowledge. And I, again, appreciate you being on here. But for people that don't know who you are, who are you?
I'm just a guy that likes to fling projectiles. I'm a projectile enthusiast, preferably stick and string.
There we go.
I don't
Perfect.
know
I
what
love
else
it.
to say, dude.
So, yeah, I mean, you've been shooting bows for a long time. You've had a lot of experience and knowledge and things along those lines. But I was about to ask you a question before we even hopped on recording. You're like, you should probably start recording just in case. So,
Yeah.
with that, I'm going to lead off with the fact that I understand the last couple weeks since Utah Tack have been insane for you as far as you made some comments. And what I find from an outsider perspective, not knowing you extremely well or into the other people that are involved in this supposed beef that, I don't really think is really a beef. I just feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot of mixed knowledge out there where people are not understanding the difference between applications of flinging projectiles with a stick and string. There's
Yeah.
there's so many ideas out there, and there's not really one set particular way to go about doing things. There's so many different ways to skin a cat per se. But am I correct in thinking that? Because I don't think there's actually any beef going on there, but people seem to blow up about that. So
Yeah.
kind of walk
Well,
me through what's going on there.
sure, sure. Well, I spend a lot of time at these Total Archery Challenge events for like the last 3 years. You can see I've put a lot more of our company and my personal time and effort and resources into the tack because I really, really believe in it. I really believe that it I feel like it's helping archery grow. The fact that people are out there, the fact it's families, it's big groups, your group. I mean, I had to break you guys up. There's like 700 RedBeard clan coming through there. Um, but there's so many, and they're grassroots people, they're families, and they're out there to shoot, they're out there to challenge themselves, they're out there to get better. And as you know, I spend a tremendous amount of my personal time on the range because if they're shooting a knock-on course, I want to shoot with every person that's registered for that course. And I do. So I get to see 10,000 plus people a year shoot at a target that I'm at, and I watch a lot of arrow flight. And the one thing that's so rewarding for me, because so much of what we do as a brand, and honestly our brand has been established now to where Knock On is giving back to archery, and we want to give back to archery, and everything that we do is to try to help grow archery. So when I see people show up and they're shooting a handheld release regardless of brand for the first time, and they're making an awesome shot, I'm like so happy inside. I'm just like, because sometimes I'll put my arms around people for a picture. I can feel people are nervous and they're shaking, and then they get next to me, but they still like make a good shot. They execute a good shot. They don't let the moment force them into target anticipation. That is so rewarding. And it's so rewarding seeing the amount of wives that come out the first year with their husbands and they walk, and they love the walk and they love the courses. Then the next year they tag along with a bow and they kind of pick and choose some shots. And normally they move up. They're like, no, I'm not going to shoot from here. I normally talk them into it anyway. Um, but then the next year they show up, and here we are like 4 years in. A lot of the ladies are and kids, youth, are showing up with better gear than dad, and I love that. I just totally love that. It's what fuels me to put in the kind of hours that we do to come to those events for the people. That is a big investment for us. But this last year, it seems like more than any, the amount of people that showed up with arrows that are really overqualified and overpowered for their application, and then starting to watch diminishing accuracy on some people because of the fact that their projectile is now becoming even a larger mathematical equation because the arc is higher, the pin gaps have to be that much more precise, the amount of people that show up and like stick a tape on just, the day before, all these little things, they add up to making people go backwards instead of forwards. And honestly, some of these, and I'm normally inquisitive. I'm like, hey, were you shooting those arrows last year? No, I saw this thing and I realized I really need to be, above this for an arrow weight. Or they try a different vane configuration, or they try something and they don't try it to improve accuracy. They try it because they're being told by a social influencer.
Mm.
And honestly, as an industry, I'm taking responsibility, and honestly, that's how all this started. Was when I was driving back with my wife. I just said, "Man, I know I can make people better. I just have to tell them why." And so I took it upon myself to push the industry, and honestly, to help the voices of the archery shops that are also fighting this problem, when they're the ones setting people's bows up and they're like, you're trying to combine an apple and an orange, and and you're standing there watching me try to tune this thing, and maybe they get it to tune in the range up close, or tune, quote unquote, tune through paper. But then they go home and and there's just issues that arise. There's
Mm-hmm.
people that want to tell everyone that a certain vein is the best, but then all of a sudden they don't realize, like, the new Matthews, new Hoyts, there's a very fine line of clearance with some of these vein choices when it comes to the newer style rests and the newer style cable rod systems or roller guard systems. So all of a sudden people don't pay attention to, like, how their veins are kind of oriented when it's on the string so that they actually get that clearance, or they have a setup to where any variation in their form or technique causes interference. And then when you cause interference on an arrow that is already hard enough to get to, like your bow, because listen, the arrow and the bow, that's a relationship. They have got to get along. You can't, you can, it's like two employees that hate each other. You can put them in the same room and say, listen, we're trying to go to the same place. You need to get along. But like, at some point you got to just be like, listen, they can both do the jobs we need them to do, but let's put this guy with the person that likes this gal or this guy, and let's put this guy over in this department. They all get along. And hey, then you have a productive atmosphere. But I feel like some of this was going the wrong direction. The industry, the aero companies necessarily weren't totally standing up. I stopped writing a lot of these super technical articles once I
Mm.
stopped traveling internationally to coach national teams. And so I just think at some point this has got a little bit out of control, and I'm just trying to, like, bring people back of, like, listen, there's never been a time where the bows themselves are in such unbelievable, like, design, innovation, and performance as they are right now. We're in the best era ever shooting a bow, and then all of a sudden we decided to, like, put some type of an arrow in there that took us back in time. So what I'm doing is, I'm not trying to say I know it all.
Mm-hmm.
I know I know what works, and I know what has been very problematic historically, either for myself, for teams I've worked with, for manufacturers that I've worked with, and for archery shops which I've worked with, which, I was a rep for the biggest archery manufacturer in the world for 10 years. I had 1,100 dealers. Like, I know what the dealers are going through too. So I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting this on my shoulders. I'm going to go out and I'm going to start shooting live and spilling my heart to people to just start paying attention to the truth, because I can shoot it. Like, I can do it in front of you live. I can show you. Some of these other YouTube things, they're edited. You don't know what happened. And the more I've dug into it, the more I've realized some of the people just have such little like historical information to apply that they're more or less just like playing around for the first time, but people are taking it to the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just taking us the wrong way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I appreciate that too. And the reason why I bring that up, because I want people to understand that, like, it's not like Dudley versus the world, or,
I hope not.
anything like that. Right. But like, even working in bow shops, it's funny when they're like, oh, well, I work with Wild Arrows, my bow shop. They're great
Great
guys,
shop.
outstanding. Yeah.
Great shop.
Outstanding individuals.
Amazing.
And people are like, oh, well, they obviously don't get along with the two other shops that are really close to them. And knowing the guys, I'm like, they'd go sit down and eat dinner with them and hang out. Like, there is no beef there. So
Yeah.
people manufacture this stuff to put it out there, get clicks and all this other stuff. And I just wanted to kind of start off there and be like, John isn't that way. He just wants to provide good information out there to people. And if you want to go kill hogs, then drive a tank over them, if that's what you need to do. But
I haven't seen that yet, but it sounds awesome.
But I know and I know this episode will probably come out after the one that you have, but you've got a bunch of people lined up that you're getting together, some of the bigger names in the influencer, YouTube, whatever space you want to call it. And
yeah,
you're going to be talking with
any
them.
minute Ranch Fairy will launch, and
There you
then
go.
an hour after that, Joel Maxfield will launch, and then a day after that, Dr. Peter Attia will launch. So
there you go. That's awesome. You're getting the information out there, and it's not like the Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg fight, right? That's not.
Hey, dude, I honestly, someone told me about that with Troy, and they're just like, what are you guys going to do? And honestly, hopefully I'm professional. Like, I'm in this industry. This
Mhm.
industry is literally where I've been since I was 18 years old. Started, I think yesterday when I podcasted with Joel, I think I was like the third or fourth sales rep ever hired.
Wow.
So I've always tried to attack a lot of these things in the industry professionally, and I've learned. I mean, honestly, a big one I'll tell you right now. This was a big one. Was single cams versus cam and a half system. When the cam and a half system first came out, there was some information that was put forward about the cam and a half that was accurate, but from a certain point of view, it wasn't necessarily like, hopefully that person's okay. It wasn't necessarily like, it wasn't a lie, but it wasn't comparing apples to apples. It compared
Mm-hmm.
apples to oranges. And so even at that time when I was at Matthews, we had this huge campaign that we did that was literally called Apples to Apples. And and what we did was we compared different things of the bows, efficiency, knock travels. We compared a lot of different things like that. And we brought in every single writer that would come. We actually brought machines to the ATA and invited other manufacturers to come over to introduce them to some of the technology that we used in the studying. And and I was luckily part of, I mean, I grew up with Matt McPherson as one of my mentors, and Joel Maxfield as well, both like, moguls in our industry, right? That's like where I started. Spent 10 years there. Then immediately, when I left Matthews, I started JDA International, which was John Dudley Archery International, and I literally started freelancing and consulting for archery companies based on the jobs that I did at Matthews, which was, when I left, I was an international sales and marketing manager. I had been a regional manager domestically. And then I shot professionally at the time when I left. I think I had like a number 2 world ranking or something. And I had a lot of like direct connection to the industry, all in all facets. And when I left Matthews and started JDA, so that I could honestly have more time to go work with teams and have more time to compete, it wasn't in Matthews' car. Honestly, looking back, I think they probably would have handled it differently. But, Matt was kind of like, if I can't have you, I'm not going to, like if you're not going to work in house, you're not going to work here at all type thing. And I wanted to just consult for Matthews, but be on my own, if I'm honest. And that didn't work out. So I honestly went and interviewed with Bowtech, PSE, and Hoyt. All three of them like contacted me within 3 days of news getting out that I had left. And so then I went with Hoyt. I really, I had good friends there. I competed with several of their engineers. One of my best friends was the one that designed the cam and a half, Darren Cooper. His best friend and one of my very close friends was Zach Kurtzall, who is now the president of Hoyt. But when I went to Hoyt, I worked directly under Mike Looper and Randy Walk. So I worked there. And honestly, like I'll just tell you, within 1 day of me leaving Matthews, I officially worked for Carter, Trophy Taker, Winner's Choice, Easton, Hoyt. I think there was 9 that hired me.
Wow.
So with those different companies, I managed pro staff budgets. I did, international sales and marketing. I did international ad layouts, and I constructed pro staffs for different companies. That's what I did. And none of that was like forward in the industry. And honestly, I still do. I get hired to come in as a consultant and look at what that company's doing. And I use my expertise that I've had for 30 years. And I try to help them, I try to help them if they're tight in budgets. Honestly, some projects are just R&D. So it's like, even a company that you might think is like a product I don't like, they'll still hire me to come in and give them advice or to actually put their products to test, which I think is critical. And there's some great companies out there that are like, hey, we know you don't like our product, but we want you to like our product. So can you work with us on this new one so that we can bring forth something that, that has those things that you like, which some of these partnerships you see me with certain companies where Nock On offers those products. That's where they came forward and said, like Nock On Custom Archery is taking a product that I really like, but improving the little things that might be different. So, throughout that, I've learned like how to work with people. Some people have opinions, and when they have opinions, it's normally not because they're an idiot. It's because like, I made this example. My son is on his second year of his doctorate in science, but he already has 7 college years with a double major in biology and chemistry.
Wow.
And some of the stuff he brings home, he'll start talking to me, and I'm just like, dude. And he even says, he's like, when people talk to me about science, I realize pretty fast like what their level is. But then I also realize like what mine is, because when I start talking to my professors, I'm like, I don't know what I don't know. And so that's kind of what happened. And right away, like for example, Ranch Fairy, right away he was tagged and he reached out. He's like, I want to know what you're doing. I know you probably won't even respond to me, but man, I'm very curious about a conversation. So I called him and I said, listen, I'm all about having a conversation, dude. I'll be an open book to you, but like, I am not going to be clickbait. I'm not going to talk to you like as an alias. I'm not going to deal with the character. Let's have a very good communication. And honestly, we had a great communication. I think, Troy even told me today, I actually sent Troy the podcast description because it's not like super positive to him. And he's just like, dude, that's totally fair. And he's like, I learned a lot from you. and I want to learn more. And honestly, he's reached out and said, "Can I send you my spreadsheets to where you will start collecting data for me based on the arrows you're choosing and the projectiles you choose?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, dude." And honestly, I offered to go down to Texas and do a bow build for Troy and give him archery lessons, so that he has proper technique, and
Mm-hmm.
when he's actually shooting an arrow, like the technique is good enough so that the data is actually accurate. You know what I mean? So shooting machines are great, but they're like, that isn't what shoots a bow.
Mm-hmm.
The shooting machines have a purpose, but like incorrect or insufficient archery form also has a very important purpose to these tests, because some people can have improper facial pressure, the direction of their release hand, their grip pressure, like you name it. Not to mention, we showed one thing where someone had posted a YouTube video, a very popular social media channel, very popular. And, when I played this back, it's like their knock fit and the weight of that arrow in slow motion, because I have software that I can slow everything like way the
Mm-hmm.
freak down.
Yeah.
It like pulled the string all the way past the string stopper to the side of it. But like no one in this YouTube video noticed that. They all
Mm.
came away with the fact that this 700 grain arrow cracked a bone harder than anything else or whatever it was. And I'm just like, okay, well, before the arrows even left the string, that's the problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is affecting accuracy. Like let's forget about any of that stuff. Let's talk about like what can help you actually deliver a clean arrow through the air.
Yep. No, and it's a lot of amazing information. That's the other thing too that I've found, and it's across the board, just as adults in general, as human beings. Clear communication is key, and being willing to learn, especially recognizing, I mean, the fact that you've been in the archery industry as long as I've been alive, kind of blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's amazing and I've heard some of your story as far as how you got started, your dedication to it, and you're willing to share that knowledge and go and help other people, in a, I guess, a non-biased way. Like you're just using your knowledge, your experience to
Yeah.
show people how you're doing things. And it's not a, my way is the only way, but it is a here's what I've found works way.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to have a conversation with people rather than, like you said, clickbait or trying to be something that you're not. And I know, um, well, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about fitness as well, because I want to go down that rabbit hole. I don't think people have really talked to you about that much. But since I saw you last year and then the year before that, like you have gone through a whole transformation, that I want to dabble on. But before we go there, is there anything else that you wanted to mention on this whole quote unquote beef?
Hey, I like conversations. I wish I could do them more. It kind of like comes down to time. And to be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you, this year, the reason I've been like so in front of people during this first part of August is normally there's a TAC at the end of July. And when I come back from that, I always like allocate a certain window of time for only family, and I just turn off because I've been hustling. But this year, since TAC got done like a week and a half earlier, 2 days or 2 weeks earlier, because Big Sky wasn't, literally like last week or whenever it normally would be, I just, honestly, I kind of told people that asked, like people that DM'd me and asked about a podcast. I'm like, listen, I have this window of time. I will do whatever I can for you, but like once that window of time passes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be working or skinning something, I hope.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, I definitely recognize that, and the fact that you travel to all these TAC events, I would agree with your comment at the beginning where you're saying Total Archery Challenge is making an impact on people. I love the fact that it puts people in different scenarios or even real life scenarios that they're going to go in. Some people travel from the East Coast, travel from Texas, flatlanders basically, and they come out to Utah or Big Sky and they realize their third axis is off, They realize this, that, or the other that they're
Real
not
quick.
used to. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Real quick. And, they also realize that the arrow flies a little bit higher because there's less, pressure from the air, all of these things that go into the little technicalities of archery. And they were willing to stake thousands of dollars on an elk hunt that they may only be able to do once in their lifetime. And
Yeah.
so they're kind of prepping for that and realizing all the things that they don't notice shooting at sea level on flat ground consistently. So, I agree with you that Total Archery Challenge and then the other events too, like Mountain Archery Fest and the other ones that are coming up are amazing for people to be able to show up to. And I always encourage people, if there's a local one, even if you don't want to travel for it, go to it and
For
test
sure.
yourself.
Yeah.
Keeping score isn't necessarily about winning per se, like winning a prize, but it's more about how good did you shoot? Did you hit where you were aiming, basically?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if not, why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's where my heart is, if not, why not? Like, there's so many awesome tools. The gear is so freaking good. Which like that was it wasn't an easy test, but like that day where I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to go on this rant, but if I'm going to do it, I want to make sure it applies to everybody. So like, I'm just like, okay, first things first, let's just talk helical. Let's talk about all these people that are spending 2 hours, clocking their arrows coming out of the bow and like buying a whole different serving tool and stripping all their stuff off and doing this. Well, there's 2 days you could have actually focused on proper technique. But what I did was I took a RX7 phase 4 and a levitate and literally shot all 3 of those bows at 70 meters with a right and left helical on the exact same arrows. And then I took like an America's Best string, which is twisted counterclockwise, so it does give you a slightly different rotation out of the bow. And so then I just like shot them all live, and I think I was just under 500 arrows that I shot that day. And I just, the thing is, it's like most people can't even shoot the group that I shot down there with all of them mixed together.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, listen, to some people, does it make sense that if it's naturally wanting to turn that way, you should let it? Sure. And you can if you want to, but it's not going to change downrange accuracy, because it's been my experience that you actually want the paradox of the arrow to stabilize prior to immediate rotation. Because if front end and back end are above or below center and it's rotating, for me, that's like when I watch high speed stuff, some of that stuff starts to get a little bit finicky. And then when you like super load the front of it and you're thrusting a light back end with a heavy front end, that arrow starts to have some kind of weird bends in it that really take a long time to end up stabilizing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, that's all amazing information. I know you've got databases just of your own personal stuff that you've recorded, stuff that you worked with in a lab. I think you posted something the other day of when you were shooting in Oakley with
Yeah.
with their glasses.
Yeah, that was actually a penetration test doing R&D for it might have been a SEAL team or it might have been a Delta team for a certain helmet. I mean, honestly, I'm based on the time. I mean, it damn near could have been like when Jocko's team was in Ramadi or something, dude. It was like really close to that time, and it was all urban warfare. So intel was, hey, these guys have bows and they're shooting from elevated position at our
Wow.
people. Like, what could happen? Which an arrow in Kevlar is just like nothing. Like it's butter. If it's any of our gear with Kevlar, like good freaking luck. If it's a cut on impact head, it's just like Kevlar doesn't stand a chance to arrows. It does to bullets, it does not to arrows. So it was a viable intel but none of these things stood the test. I mean, I had arrows sticking out of the heads of all these crash test dummies, and I mean, even out to 100 yards, shooting across the whole parking lot. Same thing, I just kept
Wow.
signing all these helmets and glasses. It just said, "You're dead too. You're dead, dead." Check.
Golly, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You've had some pretty cool experiences even out of the spotlight of shooting. So that's really cool. Well, I want to dive into something that I've wanted to talk to you a little bit about as far as health and fitness is concerned, because
Yeah.
like I said, over the past couple years of seeing you in person, you're already a giant. You could like put that Sasquatch suit on and
I
and
might.
stand out there. Yeah, exactly. But with that being said, you've lost some weight, but not just getting skinny fat. Like you have, I mean, you've filled out, and you're not 30. Obviously, you told me you got 30 years of experience. So, what's going on there? What have you done? What have you changed? And how have you felt?
So So I mean, I guess just for the record, like right now, this is actually like my personal office. I'll show this because I showed showed Dan too when he podcasted with me. But like, this is like my personal office. So fitness is like, I grew up a football player. I
Mm.
grew up a football player. My family are like standout athletes. My dad's a high school Hall of Famer. He had a triple scholarship, and then ended up going to Nam. Okay, so, but my family's very athletic. I was supposed to play college football too, but that's a weird story in itself, and ended up going to work for an archery shop for like $4 an hour. So I've always like lifted, and I love fitness. And there was a pretty small window of my life where I kind of fell into like the archery, like out of shape. Like, I got up to like a 38, waist, which for me, when I was in high school, I wore 38 pants. I had like a small waist and long ass legs. Um, but when my waist size matched my inseam, I was
Mm.
like, dude, and I started seeing pictures of myself where like, the front shoulders like compressed and the belly's like hanging out. I'm just like, I got to get back on track. And I ended up like getting on track. Luckily, about a year and a half, I kind of got back into pretty good shape about a year and a half before the Arnold Classic brought archery into the Arnold Classic. So this was like, I think it was like 2005, 2006. It might have been 4 and 5. I'm not sure. But the Arnold Classic, I mean, if you're into fitness, you know what the Arnold Classic is. It's the biggest Olympic sporting event
Mm.
anywhere. It's actually, I think it's bigger than the World Games, which I've competed there too. Um, but I got invited. They started out by inviting the top 40 men and top 40 female pros to come do archery at the Arnold Classic. Um, I won the first one, and when I won the first one, Arnold and his old archery training buddy Frank Zane, who was like, honestly, I looked up to Frank Zane a lot because my first workout equipment was a Solo Flex, and Frank Zane was like Solo Flex commercials, dude. So I'm like, oh my god. So yeah, I remember like junior high, trying to max out on 3 bands with my buddies, getting under there and just trying to stretch a freaking rubber band. But I loved fitness, and luckily I'd got into pretty good shape. I met Frank, and Frank and Arnold ended up having this little like row, like I'm sure they did anytime they competed each other. And they ended up saying, next year, head to head, me and you here, we will shoot off after finals. We'll have like a 4 end like shoot off. So I was like, all right, this is going to be cool. Well, as soon as Arnold walked away, Frank came over and he goes, you won this. You know what you're doing. I want lessons because I'm not losing to that guy. And so I'm just like, all right, I live in Wisconsin. Do you want to come get lessons? I've got an indoor range and everything. And he goes, he's like, actually, I'm doing a seminar in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, at a gym, and like at a Gold's Gym or something, like whatever it was, a couple months later. So Frank actually came to my house for 4 days, and he did that for a reason. One, I wanted to coach him, which he loves archery. Great guy, great friend. But what was really cool is Frank said, when you wake up, I'm going to tell you what to do. And we're going to go shopping, and I'm going to watch what you put in the cart, and I'm going to tell you the do's and don'ts. So I did that with Frank, and I got in great shape. And one of the things prior to that next year, one of the things that Frank and Arnold both told me that was so important, because I think I had just turned like 31 or 32. They're like, if you can make it a goal to be in the best shape of your life at 40 compared to 30, then you'll be on a course to where you'll continually get better every year, and you won't go so hard that you injure yourself and you prevent the next decade. Because both of them said our regret is like kind of how hard and heavy and reckless we were when we didn't know any better. And now, like, their inability, especially like in their lower back and their legs and hips, on some of the stuff, some of the techniques at that time put a lot of strain in those areas. So he's like, if you can maintain all that. So I actually did get in better shape at 40 than I was at 30. And then what happened was, probably, I guess it was about 18 or 19 months ago now. It was January, and I was in Texas doing a black rifle event. It was actually a cooking contest thing, and I was down there, and I told one of the people that was on my team, I said, I'm considering doing the carnivore or something. I'm like, but I just don't know if, like, I just don't think the carnivore would be like sustainable for me in a hunting situation, because during certain times a year, I might be, I just kind of live out of a backpack, so,
Yeah.
or my truck. So he told me, he's like, I've tried them all. Me and him were very similar in stature. Clancy is his name. For any black rifle people, you might know Clancy. So Fancy Clancy. So Clancy said, dude, I did keto. And he goes, when I did it, it matched my body like perfect. He's like, I freaking shed weight. I got right down. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do keto. So then I decided to do it. And in doing so, I like mentioned it to two people. I mentioned it to Rogan, and I mentioned it to Andy Stumpf. Both of them said, we've tried it, we liked it, but man, we just didn't have the energy to be able to like have fuel in the tank. And I just said, okay, well, I'm just going to do it and see how I feel. And I really wanted to reduce inflammation, because inflammation is, at my age, is really starting to kill my archery. When I have inflammation, when like my shoulder has like a really, really dull pain, because my right labrum is gone, and my left shoulder got completely rebuilt, but it actually, I think I think something is gone again, personally. And it comes from, like, if I build Rogan's bow at 28 inches and 95 pounds, like, I shoot it, or if I'm like building my wife's bow, it's like 26 inches. So like the short stuff, like even this motion right now hurts. So that's like kind of hurt me a little bit. And I kind of thought, well, I'm not really worried about it. And because those guys said that, what happened was, when I came in the weight room, and maybe this is the key, I don't know, but my mental, like, I guess my mental direction going into keto is, dude, don't go backwards in any weights. Like, because if you work out, about where you're at on the racks, you know where you're at on the pinholes. So I'm like, I marked them with chalk. And honestly, I took my 80, 90s, and 100, I took them off my rack, and they're literally next to my bench. And those are like my adjustable bench. And those are the only things I move. And I'm like, no matter what, like you can't go over there and go backwards. You have to like stay. So I just really focused on sustaining exactly the strength that I had. I didn't want to change my strength. I just wanted to change my health,
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I was at health wise and inflammation wise. And honestly, within a few months, just I realized that keto for me is like perfect for me. Um, I love eating it. That I love eating keto. It has the foods I like, and honestly, I never got along well with like fried foods, white flours, or any
Mm.
type of starch, especially like white pastas. I just get very bloated. It takes a long time to digest. Normally, I'd wake up a few hours after I went to sleep, and my heart would be beating kind of hard, and
Yeah.
I'd be like ballooned out. None of that is like all that is long, long, long gone. So I went keto, and literally, all I'm doing is I'm the exact same strength as I always was when I was 250-pound dud. The difference is now I'm like I've pretty much stabilized. I mean, I don't try to lose weight. I don't try. Sorry, that's my bad. It always happens. I don't try
Oh,
to
you're
lose
good.
weight. I stopped. I stopped. Did you go away, dude?
Nope, I'm right
Hold
here.
on. Okay, sorry, you went away on the screen. So I'm like right at 200. My weight is stopped there. I'm doing the same thing, and I just focus on keeping my strength at a level to where I'm not like overly sore. I can still train. I can still practice. And what I did add, and this was again from Fancy Clancy, said if you want to like add one thing that can help you like lose some of the initial weight, he said just start rucking, which
Mm-hmm.
normally I would ruck prior to season, but at that time what I did was I just put I think I started just at full. I don't think I was full incline when I started, but like now what I do is I put my treadmill on max incline. I'm up to 3.8 is what I can walk at now.
Wow.
So I walk at 3.8 with a fully double weighted CrossFit vest, and I do that 4 times a week for 30 minutes. And if I decide to do any other like exercise that's not just moving weights, I've either got like my ski erg, the rower. I'll do one or two of those things, and then I'll normally bike. I'll get on a bike in the morning. If I turn my phone on, turn it off, do not disturb, turn airplane mode off. I get on the bike and I just sit there and just pedal and like read and just, try to just get 20 minutes of, making the quads fill up. And dude, I'm in the best shape of my life, and I've literally changed nothing except for those things. It's just keto for me has been amazing. Several of my friends have done it now. So John Barklow, I don't know if you know John
Mm-hmm.
Barklow,
Yep.
total transformation. John Barklow, and then I'm trying to think one other person. So me and John together have lost 100 pounds
Wow.
currently. And I got John on it in April. And he even told me, he's like, dude, this is freaking nuts. He's like, I can't wait to hunt this way. Cause listen, I can hunt. I can fill my backpack with like Baby Bell cheese, like a square thing of mixed nuts. There's some that are better than others. I don't like the
Mm-hmm.
ones with all the peanuts in there. So get a good one, and then beef jerky. There's tons of different ones. Rogan just introduced me to a new one that's really good too. So I can like live out of my backpack with those things, and I'm totally good to go.
That's awesome. And you don't feel like so I did keto. It's been a couple years now at this point. I haven't tried it again. But when I did it, I recognized that I had problems with my early morning workouts, and to the point where one time it wasn't CrossFit, but it was similar, where we were moving weights fast. Excuse me, and I got lightheaded and had to sit down.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing that I found that didn't work out necessarily for me. But do you ever have any, do you feel like you've lost energy, or do you have a strategy to get through that while you're out hunting?
Well, for me, listen, last year, zero. Like last year was the hardest hunting season I've ever had. And it was for a number of reasons. One is I spent several years like mentoring people. So I was doing a lot
Mm,
of hunts with other people, trying to get them their first elk or whatever it was. And because of that, a lot of these hunts would come down to like the last day, and I'd be like, dude, you got to go out on your own. I have one day to fill this tag, and I
hmm.
was kind of like settling all the time. And as much as I love the mentorship, I just hadn't really been for me. I was in like bigger camps, like more commercialized, like outfitters where the groups are really big, or there's, tons of media teams there. And it was just like, it's just not my roots. So this past year, I just kind of told a lot of people, hey, you guys know how to hunt. You got friends that can hunt. You got places to go. If I see you there, awesome. I want to hunt for me this year. And everyone
Yep.
was just like, dude, thanks for all your help. Get after it. So last year I got after it. I mean, last year, started on August 25th in Alberta, and between August 25th and September 25th, I think I'd done like 532,000 steps. I think I'd done like
Wow.
just, I think I'd done like just under 100 miles in a boat rowing, a couple 100 miles on a bike pedaling, and then the rest of it was just freaking humping. And it was my best fall I've ever had. And dude, like fasting is no issue for me. And what happens supposedly is a lot of people that try keto, and listen, it's probably not for everybody,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and but like there's a mental side of it. And honestly, like Barklow loves that, which is why him and his wife now are just like, they're like, we're all in, like this is a game changer. There comes a point where like your body's in ketosis, but it also kind of knows that there's a chance you're going to go back. And
Hmm.
I think its inner bitch is saying, okay, I'm going to make you lightheaded for a second.
Hmm.
See if you back out and give me a freaking Cinnabon, damn it. Um, but what I felt was like after I got like past 4 or 5 months, it's almost like I hit a whole new gear that I didn't know
Mm.
was actually there. And so I had Dr. Peter Attia. I don't know if you've ever listened to
I've
Peter
heard the
Attia.
name.
Okay, so I had Peter Attia actually, the last 2 Aprils when I was at the Texas TAC. He has actually ran like all my blood work and stuff. And he even told me, he's like, dude, you're like so perfect on where you're at. And he was actually surprised. He's like, I can't believe like how much you got in the tank. Um, because, most people say they struggle with it. But then he told me about some research of some French cyclists that once they were in ketosis for like more than 6 months, their output actually started to increase, pretty noticeably, because
Hmm.
according to him, and I may be saying this wrong, I'm not a doctor, but he said that once your body is fully converted over to using fat for your energy source, it's like easily burnable. But it has to like there's time to not just change like your
Hmm.
diet, but also time to like literally change your freaking computer processor of like, okay, this is a whole new reprogramming. It's not just, you know, a new material. It's a whole new program. And I personally think that because I did it so long without like faltering, I actually stopped. You really do need to like stop drinking to totally do it. You don't have to. Especially if you like focus on. So I have like a couple different dry wines that I buy
Mm.
from Secco Wine Club. The one I like is called Palo. They have like 3 different color wines. but they're literally like 0.25 grams of sugar and 0.26 of carbs per like
Wow.
4-ounce glass. So you can have like wine, with like a steak or something like that, or especially that kind. It's not going to kick you out of ketosis. But I just went all in 90 days. I did no alcohol, just strict keto. And I think when I did that, I think it reset me to where I feel like I didn't have any of that stuff that you're talking about.
Okay, cool. No, that's awesome.
But I think it's
And
going to take time, personally.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, anytime you make some change like that, don't go do that before hunt season. Anyone out there
It's
listening,
like it's
like,
like going out with a brand new pair of boots.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Except for
even though that,
Crispies. Honestly,
yeah,
Crispies have been pretty damn like freaking lace them up and go, and
yeah, that's
haven't been
the
horrible.
I didn't believe that until I actually did it, just to kind of mess around. It was on a backpacking trip, not necessarily a hunt. So I kind of didn't have as much skin in the game. But I didn't have any issues with my Krispies when I laced them up because I was a little skeptical. I'm like, that's a marketing thing. But no,
Yeah.
I haven't had any issues. But no, that's really cool, man, to hear your journey on that. And I think a lot of people too in the archery community, especially as you get more Midwest and Eastern, don't recognize how important health is. And the biggest
God
thing
damn.
with that is just the idea of you want to do it longer. You want to have more time to do it. And so to be able to do that, you need to be healthy yourself. You need to make sure you're taking care of your body. And I try and
Yeah.
stress that to people. I'm like, you don't necessarily have to be able to squat 400 pounds, deadlift 1,000 pounds. Like, you don't need to do all of that. You don't need to be a master at CrossFit, but shed some weight. Yeah, everyone wants to spend thousands of dollars to shed weight in their pack. Why don't you spend a little bit of time every day in the kitchen to shed some weight off your gut? Like that,
Yeah.
that's a lot cheaper, and it's going to give you time in the long run, to be able to do things that you love, for a longer period of time. And so I love that you said, have that goal. You had some great mentors, by the way, Frank Zane, and like that's like top notch right there. But having that goal of being healthier in your 40s than you were in your 30s, and then just making that progress, not looking at it like it's a limiting factor. Like most people do, you look around and you could see 3 different 50-year-olds, and you're like, that guy took care of himself. This guy's going to die at 60. And this guy, like, it's just, it's pretty simple to see. And everyone gets
Yeah.
in this mindset of, well, my joints are falling apart and this and that. And like, yes, there's wear and tear, but what did you do to invest in yourself when you recognize that you needed to invest in yourself, kind of deal? So
Yeah.
you've
And
done a great job, it looks like.
don't be fooled. Some of your aches and ailments, like mine, were inflammation within those old joints, and when that's gone, the joints don't feel near as like ready to blow out at any given time.
Yeah.
So Frank, when I started, what I did in my 30s wasn't keto, and I got in very good shape. I wasn't in the shape I am now, but I think I was probably, I would say, within 15 pounds of it. And some dudes, especially younger guys, like now I'm just like, I'm at the age now where I'm thinking, if I get like bulky and I'm like trying to put on muscle,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to be worrying at 50 of like how hard I'm going to have to actually, like, I'm not going to be able to have a life to maintain that. So I'm
Exactly.
actually trying to visualize what strength do I want to have throughout my 50s? And that's really where I'm at. But what Frank started me on was something that's definitely doable for anybody else. There's a couple like real simple practices that I started to put to use that totally changed everything. So the first one was called, it was just a process called halving. Okay. So what he did was he told me, he's like, listen, if you're not ready to give up like carbs and junk food, then if you could at least start out by just taking half of what comes in front of you that is a bad carb or a bad sugar, no matter what, when you order it, it comes out, you take half of it and you put it to the side, enjoy the
Hmm.
half. So like, honestly, I used to, I would, and now I do this without the bottom bun, but like, let's say I went and got a hamburger. I would take the hamburger, I'd take the I take the top bun off, the big bun. And normally what I would do is I'd like tip it over. I'd like take the bottom off, flip it back over, take the top off, put the bottom of the bun, the thinner part on the top, and I would eat the hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it came out and there was this much fries, I would just slide my knife through there and do that and put the half of the fries over on the plate with the bun, the other half of the bun. I started out with stuff like that. Or if I ordered a Diet Coke or something, which I haven't had like any of that in like a long ass time, but I would drink half of it and then I would drink water. I just like
Mm-hmm.
it was that's what it was. And that in itself starts to actually help you like not count calories, but
Yeah.
control them. So I would do that. The other thing he told me was he's like, it's easy to always park the farthest away.
Mm-hmm.
And so go to a Walmart, park on the end of the parking lot, don't walk in, jog
Hmm.
up. So, I would park in the furthest spot, I would jog in. It was awesome. I
It's
always
still
found a
only like 3
place, dude.
steps for you,
Yeah,
but
I always found a place. And the other thing too was he said, make sure, he goes, anytime you feel hungry, that you're literally at the point that you've been fighting to get to. So be happy that you got there.
Hmm.
So he's like, he goes, when I was trying to always cut weight, he goes, if I could always make myself hungry one time a day and power through mentally, I knew that I stayed strict, I was disciplined, and he's like, and in the end, it wasn't like a necessity. And he's like, and what happens if you make yourself hungry one time a day and push past it, honestly, in this era, well, now you're actually getting close to what people refer to as fasting, right? Usually that hunger comes at that time where your body's like not necessarily needing it, it just
Mm-hmm.
wants it. So if you can make it not want it once a day, that's a good goal to have. So I started with those 3 things. He's like, dude, will you do these 3 things for me and let's see where you're at in a month and a half.
No, that's
And
outstanding.
I was in a place where I'm like, I saw results, so then it was easy, you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and I preach to people, simple is sustainable. You don't necessarily need to jump all in on whatever it is, whether it be archery, fitness, nutrition. You don't need to like flip the switch all of a sudden and change
Yeah.
everything. Take small, simple steps just like that. I love the idea of having things and, jogging into the store and, get over that little, maybe you feel a little weird running into the store, but get over that
Well,
and
don't
realize
like
that you're going.
sprint all out,
Right.
man. Take some old lady out or run into a car. But there's a difference between like walking like a turtle
Yeah.
and like walking like you're on a ruck.
Well, you mean walking like this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing that I did too. And honestly,
hmm
this was something that Frank told me because I remember I had just got like one of the Motorola flip phones, the little gray ones. Uh and I had that thing in the gym, and it was kind of like pre-text, but people had access to you.
yeah.
And he told me, he's like, hey man, if you make it a reward for you to get to turn that on when your workout's done, then you're going to have better workouts. And if you really need to get to that phone, then you won't fart around with your workout. You're going to make your
hmm
workout efficient. And so I still do that, I still do that a lot. And I still, honestly, I still do that at times where like I have a lot of like projects that I need to do. Like right now I've got a couple friends that are like, am I going to get my bow before hunting season? And I'm like, yes, I'll turn my phone off and do it. I mean, I apologize for my phone going off.
Oh, you're good.
That's with do not disturb in airplane mode. So like
Yeah.
I have no idea who has like full access to like ram through no matter what, but somebody does. So
Somebody
yeah.
needs your attention. No,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
Well, I'd love to, after hunting season next year, let's get one on the docket to get you scheduled up again. Because man, you are a wealth of knowledge, and we didn't even skim the surface, I feel like.
Yeah, I
But
feel like you didn't
uh,
ask me much for questions,
I
man. Like,
know, I know,
what
and
else you
I
got?
unfortunately got a hard stop that I have to go to. So,
Oh, you do? Dang.
yeah, I have a 9 to 5. I'm not cool like you, where I get to just work on bows for my whole living. But I'll get there. Maybe after 30 years of experience, I'll get to that point.
I'm on a
Uh,
4 to 6 freaking plan right now, dude.
yeah, right.
It doesn't get better. Yeah, it doesn't get better.
Exactly. But yeah, we'll have to definitely dive more into this. But I'm excited for you, for your fall things you've got going on. Definitely go spend some time with your family, man, because you've been all over the country this summer. So have a blast. And again, thank you so much for hopping on. Where can people find you that are looking for you? They probably already
Yeah,
know where you are, but
knock on Archery for YouTube, knock on Archery for our website. The website has a ton of, you can go into a side where you can watch videos, or you can go into the store side. It's actually it kind of splits off when you go to the little hamburger and you select whether you want to go into School Knock or the store. The Knock on Archery YouTube channel obviously is awesome. Knock on TV for IG, and all about free archery education. If you want to learn archery for free, giving you 100%, like, this is my personal opinion on what can make you better. That's really what I'm all about. So
awesome. I love
hopefully it
it.
can help someone.
I love it, man. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And thanks again for your time. Everyone out there, I'm going to leave the links down below. Thanks so much for tuning in today. And as I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.
Thanks, man. See you.